So the disciples are walking away, and that's how the story of Emmaus begins. Not with hope or celebration, not with joy, but in retreat. They're leaving Jerusalem, and what's remarkable is this, that they're leaving as the resurrection, what they've wanted, is unfolding. The tomb is empty, and the women have spoken, and something new is beginning, and they are on their way out. They aren't running towards hope, they're running away from it. Why? Because they're grieving, because they've lost focus. They say it quite plainly in the scriptures. We had hoped that he was the one. We had hoped that he was the one. Not we hope, or not that we are waiting, or that we had hoped. It's their hope is in the past tense. It is their vision is lost, and their focus has collapsed around their grief because of it. And they can't see the resurrection because they're so caught up in the crucifixion. They can't see possibility because they are replaying their suffering over and over. They can't see what God is doing because they focused on what didn't happen the way that they wanted it to happen. And so they're walking away. And that is not just the Emmaus story. I think it's our story. We all know what it's like to lose our focus. We focus on what went wrong instead of what might be still possible, right? We focus on what we've lost instead of what could be growing. We focus on our fear of what could happen rather than the potential of what could happen. We focus on endings so often when we need to focus on beginnings. I'm sure you, like me, have lost focus from time to time. And I don't know about you, but for me, I tend to lose focus when I don't have enough energy in the tank. Because maintaining focus requires something of us. It requires energy. And if I'm too tired to focus, I just can't. The disciples weren't stupid. They were very human. Psychologists describe hope as the ability, first of all, to see the pathways forward, and second of all, to believe that we have the agency, the energy, the ability to move toward them. So two things, to be able to see the pathways forward, and then the second is to have the agency, the energy, the ability to move on those pathways. That's where hope comes. And when hope disappears, we stop imagining new possibilities. We assume that the future is closed, like the disciples did. We begin walking away. And that is exactly what is happening on the Emmaus Road. They cannot see a path forward, and so they leave Jerusalem just as the best thing is happening. And then quietly, Jesus joins them on the path, and they don't recognize him. They are walking with the resurrection that they had hoped for. It is right literally beside them, walking that same path with them, and they don't see it. Not because Jesus is hidden, but because their focus isn't there. They are looking backwards. They're looking at loss. They are looking at what didn't happen. They are looking at expectations that they had for their life that wasn't met. And when we look in one direction so very often, we can't see what's right beside us. How often does this happen in our lives? We are so focused on the problem that we cannot see the possibility. And Jesus doesn't reveal himself immediately, right? He does something else. He refocuses them. He begins to interpret the story differently. He reframes the story for them, and he breaks bread with them. He takes what they thought was a failure and reinterprets that as part of God's plan and God's blessing, a new beginning. And slowly, hope returns, and they say, our hearts were burning within us, weren't they? They were. We felt something again. Our hearts were burning within us when he was talking to us on the road. Did you feel it? Maybe our hearts aren't so shut down after all, and they see possibility, meaning. And then comes the moment they decide to turn around, to do a 180. Right? We are on the wrong road here. We need to turn around, spin around, go back, turn around before it's too late, before we miss out. And immediately they go back to Jerusalem and they start heading back there. They go back to the place that they left, but now they're walking with hope, with potential. When they were so focused on loss, they walked away. When they were focused on resurrection, they ran back. Nothing external had changed. The way that they saw it did. And that changes everything. There's a saying, that what you see is what you get. Well, sometimes I think it's more like what you want to see is what you're going to get. So if you're looking for negativity, and you're looking for pain, you're looking for suffering, you're looking for scarcity and loss, that is exactly what you're going to see. And if you're looking for potential, you're looking for hope, you're looking for love, you're looking for blessing, it's probably also what you're going to see. And that's the invitation in this story, right? To be refocused. Not by pretending that suffering and pain doesn't exist, because that's not helpful. We don't want to deny how we suffer. Jesus never denied the pain of the cross. In fact, he walked around showing people his scars. That was part of his truth telling. This is what happened to me. This is what I survived. I suffered here. There's no denial about that. But when there is pain, so very often we focus on the pain. And what is often very helpful is putting that pain into a bigger picture, a bigger context. It's not to say it doesn't exist, but it is to say that our circumstances and our lives are so very often blessed in the midst of that. It can help to take a step back from that and have a broader look, take a broader look at our problems. The Christian story is an inherently optimistic story. There's the reason that the whole New Testament is called good news, and why Christians are referred to as the people of good news. We believe in good news. It's not that there's no bad news. It's just that we're not stuck there, and we're not going to be stuck there. The Easter story is all about good endings, happy endings. It's about suffering that can transform into something that's really good. So hope is not blind optimism. Hope is the ability, as the psychologists today say, to see the pathway forward and to believe that if we are capable of following that pathway. And sometimes that means just taking this tiniest of steps. The disciples didn't suddenly understand everything. They just knew that they were heading the wrong direction, so they turned around, but that didn't mean that they knew exactly what they were going to see when they traveled back to Jerusalem. They simply saw enough to turn around. And sometimes resurrection begins that simply, a shift in focus, a widened view, a burning heart, a desire to turn back toward life. And maybe that's where we're at today. Maybe some of us are walking down Emmaus Road, talking about what went wrong, replaying disappointment, and sinking into every bit of pain that we feel. And that's okay. That's grief. And grief needs an outlet. It needs to be spoken to, needs to be also put in its place. Like the Bible says, we don't grieve as those who have no hope. As Christians, yes, we grieve, but not as ones who have no hope. We don't end at grief, because that's not our story. Right? Our story is this Easter story. That is the defining story of who we are. So if that's where you're at, and you're sinking into all the wrongs you've done, or done to you, or disappointments and pain, then the Emmaus story is a beautiful story for you right now, because it is deeply practical. Because refocusing isn't something that just happened a couple thousand years ago in Jerusalem. It's something we are invited to practice every day. So what does that look like? Well, it might look like this, like when your mind is replaying everything that ever went wrong, consciously deciding, like choosing what is to look at, what is going right, what also is going right. So our brains are hardwired to loop around every potential threat. Right? So it's a survival mechanism. That's how we're programmed. We are built that way. So you imagine early humans walking through, walking through the forest, and a person notices a rustling in the bushes. All our brains register threat, and that's good. They are more likely to live. The people who register threat are more likely to live in that forest than the ones who are looking up and going, look at the beautiful trees. Right? So over time, as we've evolved, our brains are hardwired to scan for danger first. I'm going to look at everything that could possibly go wrong. I do that, do you? I'm going to look at everything that could possibly go wrong here. My brain's really good at that. Psychologists sometimes call it a negativity bias. The tendency for negative experiences to register more quickly, feel more intense, and linger longer than we expected. And if anybody's been through any trauma, which most of us have, that tendency to focus on all the threats is amplified 100%, right? And with every trauma, it just goes up and up and up, because then we're even more apt to scan for more threats because we don't want to get hurt again, right? I think sometimes when we encounter people who are inherently negative, it's because they're inherently hurt. When you think about that, right? Inherently hurt. Our brains then start looking for lack of safety. And when we look for lack of safety, we will find lack of safety, right? In order to give our minds a rest, we need to train them differently than how we're hardwired, which is to say, okay, brain, this is what we're doing now. We're focusing on negativity. So now we're going to focus on positivity, and we just list some. Like we did at the children's time today, we all came up with stuff that was good, right? Good news. So when you find yourself saying, I had hoped, let me say that, right? I hoped. Pause and say, okay, brain, let's think about what could be unfolding. And when the future feels uncertain, take one small step instead of feeling like you need to be all the way down the road to Jerusalem. Just one step. Because hope doesn't usually turn around all at once. It is a series of small things. The disciples didn't understand everything. They just had enough heart, enough burning in their heart to know that they needed to turn around. And sometimes that's the first step in the refocusing process. It might be choosing to notice one good thing in the middle of the hard day. And maybe it's a spiritual practice to think about that. What's one good thing that happened today? Right? It might be reaching out to someone instead of withdrawing, because sometimes that's what we do when we're really hurt. It might be taking one step towards something that is meaningful and lasting. It might be reframing a setback, not as an end, but as a turning point. Refocusing might mean, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Asking, where's God in this thing that is happening to me? Where's love in this thing that's happening to me? Where's compassion in this thing that is happening to me? Instead of saying everything is falling apart, it's all going to HE double hockey sticks. What is still alive here? What is still living here? Instead of assuming the story is over, asking what new chapter could be beginning here? And sometimes refocusing is simply this, looking for Christ walking right beside us in ordinary moments in our day, gentle conversations, or quiet insights, or small flashes of encouragement or caring love. Because resurrection doesn't often shout. It's not noisy like that. It walks beside us quietly until we realize it's always been there. Thanks be to God. Let's sing.
Touch our souls that we may know and love you.